Aloha everyone, we are your host Valerie,
Michael.
and welcome back to another episode of Alaka'i the podcast.
We hope you listened to our last episode with Elder Taniguchi about his 100 list and setting goals. We also hope you shared it with your family and friends.
Today, we are having a special episode for the 70th anniversary of BYU-Hawaii. We will be joined by Dean Alohalani Housman and Associate Professor of the Jonathan Nāpela Center for Hawaiian and Pacific Studies, and the Dean of the Faculty of Culture, Language, and Performing Arts.
Dean Alohalani Housman graduated from Brigham Young University, Hawaii in 1982 with a degree in elementary education. She also got her bachelor's in Hawaiian Studies at University of Hawaii at Hilo in 2000 and got her master's in education focusing on Hawaiian Studies in the same university in 2003. Her recent works include the translation of the 4 standard works of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in the Hawaiian language in 2021.
Welcome to our podcast, Dean Housman. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm happy to be here with you.
That's really good. We are honored to have you here with us for a special episode for our 70th anniversary of BYU Hawaii. How do you feel about that? The school that you went to for over maybe 40 years ago is celebrating the 70th anniversary.
I think it's absolutely wonderful. I remember my time here as a student was just wonderful. It was left such a great impression, and great faculty, students, and really prepared me for my life's work. So I am eternally grateful for the BYU Hawaii.
So before coming here to Hawaii, you grew up in New Jersey.
That is correct.
How was the switch of going from the East Coast to the Pacific Coast?
Okay. Wow. Being raised in New Jersey, I grew up on a farm. It was a 150-acre peach farm, and our nearest neighbor was a half a mile away. We had a river in the backyard, so we were always in the water or, with the earth. So to me, it was very similar to Hawaii, because there's such an emphasis and appreciation for kekai, the ocean, and ka'aina, which is the land. And so I feel like I was really lucky to grow up there. My grandfather actually was from the Big Island, Honolulu side. That's where he was born and raised. And he left Hawaii when he was 16 years old. I can't even imagine. And this is in 1900. He left Hawaii with a broken heart. His brother married the girl he was in love with. So he got on a ship with some friends, and they were traveling on the ship for 10 years. And by the time they got off, it was in Philadelphia. And so he found my grandmother, who's pure German, got married, settled down, had 16 children. So there's a lot of Kaluhiokalanis on the mainland. But it was a great experience growing there. And I think because I grew up on the East Coast, it really put a lot of interest and appreciation for wanting to learn things Hawaiian. And I think that played an important part of why I came to Hawaii and have been here ever since.
Nice. And you were also a student here. I would like to know, what was your, fondest memory at BYU Hawaii?
Oh, goodness, there's so many. Well, I danced in the night show, which was a lot of fun. At that time, they had what was an education department at PCC. So we took groups on tour throughout the villages in the morning, mostly educational groups, military, school groups. But I also had the opportunity to meet and work with a specialist from each island. So that was a great experience. I kind of felt like they became my aunties and my uncles, being here far away from my mom and dad. So those were great memories. And then also, being involved with the education department, wonderful teachers. We had a it was more like a day and not a night, and it was more simplified, which I really enjoyed because it was all about sharing your culture, sharing your dances and your songs with each other. So those interactions for the Hawaiian Club and sharing, and we had the opportunity to be in other clubs and perform also and learn. So those are great opportunities. I think I'm naming a lot of, but just having wonderful faculty and that interaction with PCC and BYU was just wonderful.
Yeah. And how do you think like your experiences being here had shaped your career and your personal growth?
Oh, most definitely. You know, growing up, I always knew I wanted to be a teacher. And I love math. I thought I was going to be a high school math teacher. And I didn't grow up in the church. I'm a convert. I was first introduced to members of the church on a first trip here to Hawaii when I was 12 years old. I have a twin brother. We're the youngest in the family. Our family came here for the first time to visit. We went to the 4 major islands. And when we were on this island, we actually went to the Polynesian Cultural Center. And both of us just felt there was something special about this place, this school. And it just planted the desire in us, even as 12-year-olds, this is where we wanted to go to school. And between 12 and 17, we were able to have different interactions. My auntie joined the church, my uncle joined, then the DCC temple was built and they invited us to go. And you know, those little papers that you fill out, you know, the missionary finally found us and were able to track us down to introduce the gospel to us. So I feel like my journey started here in the gospel, and my journey in my profession also started here at BYU Hawaii, because a year later, when I got my patriarchal blessing right before coming back to BYU Hawaii, in the patriarchal blessing, you talked a lot about teaching younger children. And so I thought, okay, maybe I'm not supposed to teach high school math. So I switched it to elementary education. And the Lord really knew what I needed to do, because that kind of set in motion a series of events that happened to bring me back to BYU Hawaii to teach. Because I had an elementary education, and while I was here, I took Hawaiian language classes and just was very passionate about learning Hawaiian, speaking Hawaiian. When I got married, we made the commitment to only speak Hawaiian to our children. And through that, was asked to become the first Hawaiian language immersion teacher on this island in 1987. And it's because I had an elementary education degree. If I had gone high school, I never would have had that opportunity. And so following your patriarchal blessing, following those inspirations of things that you should do in your life, the prophet says it all the time, let God prevail, right? If we will let him take us on this journey, he will be able to give us a journey that will be even more remarkable than we can even imagine. And because of the work that I was doing in the Hawaiian Immersion Program, that kind of took me to the next step, where the University of Hawaii wanted me to come and train teachers to become Hawaiian Immersion teachers. So I taught Hawaiian Immersion for 14 years, was hired by UH Hilo, worked there for another 14 years, training, and all of the classes are conducted in Hawaiian. And because of that, I was invited to come here to teach here at BYU Hawaii. So this will be the 10th year of being here, and it just has brought a full circle. And it really is because of when you get to those hinge points and you have to make decisions. If you might think it's more logical to go this way, but then the Lord says, I really need you here. If you go there in the path that he wants you to go, then you'll receive so many more blessings.
Yeah, you mentioned a lot about your life post-graduation, and most of it is about teaching.
Mm-hmm.
And then part of BYU Hawaii mission is to enter to learn and go forth to serve. How have you shown the go forth to serve part since graduating from this university?
Mm-hmm. Well, I've served in multiple areas in the church, as Relief Society president, primary president, young women's counselor, teaching seminary, gospel doctrine. But not only that, but I would say, especially in the Hawaiian Immersion Program, you're not just a teacher. It's so much more than that. When I first started, we didn't really have materials for children, like books. So it was every Saturday, every holiday was at school creating books, creating curriculum. We had a really close-knit relationship with parents. They would actually come on a Saturday to help cut and paste books. They would white out the English and put in the Hawaiian. So it was a lot of extra service time to do that. And we just became so close-knit. It was be able to share the gospel with friends and colleagues and just different activities. We became really, and still are close to this day as families in Hawaiian immersion. So there are many ways that we can be serving. Another way, I guess, would be working on the scriptures and making them accessible again. A lot of people knew about the Book of Mormon in Hawaiian. Not many knew about the Doctrine and Covenants and Pearl of Great Price, were translated in the early 1900s. And fortunately, because I spoke Hawaiian and I had children who were speaking Hawaiian, someone gifted me a copy of the 1913 that had the DNC and the Pearl of Great Price in Hawaiian. I held on to that for years until I felt impressed that this should be made accessible again, because you can only find copies in archives. Most people don't have a hand copy. And so I felt like that was a service that I needed to provide to make it accessible to our Hawaiian saints again.
Oh. Thank you, Dean Housman, for sharing those things with us. We've seen how you went to serve with all the things that you've learned from BYU. But moving forward, now that you've been dean for almost 3 years now, how has your perspective on the university changed over the years that you've been here?
I think because I've been so focused on Hawaiian studies, serving as a dean now over culture, language, and performing arts, I actually oversee 8 different programs, which Pacific Studies, Hawaiian Studies, History, Peace Building, Anthropology, Music, Theater, Humanities. So it's really kind of broadened my perspective of the different programs that we have here, at least in the faculty, our faculty of culture, language, and performing arts, and the great work that our faculty are doing and how we can kind of work together. There have been multiple times, for example, most recently in the fall, we had a kupuna luncheon. We invited kupuna. There were about 80 of them who came, and we put on a nice program for them and with music, Hawaiian music and hula, and provided them lunch. The students came to serve, but it was a collaborative effort between the Peace Building program and the Hawaiian Studies program. There are just so many opportunities where we can share the gospel. Maybe another example is the music program that has gone to the outer islands to share their aloha. Last year, the studio orchestra went to Maui to serve those who were affected by the fires in Lahaina. Sorry, I'm getting emotional.
It's okay.
To bring hope and joy into their lives after things have been so devastating for them. So those kind of services, and to see the wonderful students that we have here at BYU that are so willing to go out and touch the lives of different people is just such a blessing to the university, to the church as a whole, and to our communities. So there are many more opportunities that we will have to be able to share the uniqueness, the specialness, and the aloha that our students, faculty, and the university has to share with the world.
Okay. Thank you for that, Dean Housman. I've actually, just to piggyback on what you shared with the students going to Maui, I was actually part of chamber choir last year.
Yes.
You were there as well with us, and I could see how much you love the people there, how you used your knowledge of the Hawaiian language to help us connect the music that we were singing to the people that we were singing to. It was a treat to see. I've never heard the Hawaiian language spoken before, and you were the first ones that I've heard. So it was such a sight to see. Okay, so what challenges do you face as a dean or professor in the Hawaiian Studies in promoting and preserving language at the university as diverse as BYU Hawaii?
One thing that's really fortunate, I've taught all levels from first to fourth year. And one of the classes I enjoy the most is Hawaiian 101 because we have such a diverse group of students from all over. And almost the greatest percentage of the students have never taken Hawaiian before. And to see, our Asian and South Pacific and students from the mainland and even local students who haven't had the opportunity to learn Hawaiian, just to see them grasp the language and to find joy in it and learning how to pray in Hawaiian and sing songs and just learning more about the culture and the history of this area. I think for anyone who comes to BYU Hawaii, and being here for 4 years, you should really learn something about the local culture, history, and language, and take that back with you wherever you go, or even if you stay, to really understand maybe some of the challenges that people in Hawaii have. And I'm sure a lot of those challenges are in other places too. I think whenever we're studying culture and language and music, hula, it helps us, well, for me personally, it helps me to know my background and where I come from, my roots. But when I can feel confident and feel joy about where my family has come from, it kind of opens the door to even appreciate other cultures from all over. So I think the more we understand and share with each other, the more deeper understanding that we have. And when we have a deeper understanding and knowledge and appreciation of other people, to me, that's what leads to peace.
I love that. I'm not a dancer, so I haven't learned the hula yet, but I'm grateful because I've gotten to learn chant in Hawaiian. I was able to sing in Hawaiian as well, so that's one thing. There's a lot of opportunities to learn, like you said. Okay, we learned that you were one of the few people who brought back the use of Hawaiian language. How do you see BYU Hawaii's mission of intercultural unity and understanding reflected in your own work?
Intercultural unity. Kind of, maybe if I could just piggyback on some of the things that I've said already, is, understanding who you are, where you're from, is just kind of helping to build bridges interculturally through diversity. I have such a fond appreciation of all the different ethnic backgrounds that our students come from and their dance. I mean, Culture Night is such a highlight that we go to every year, but it's just amazing. I love the diversity, but I also love the similarities. And I think when we understand the similarities, that's what helps us to have a better understanding of each other and appreciation for each other. I remember as a student, I took a religion class, and it was a world religion class, and it was taught by Nephi Georgie. He was my favorite religion teacher. I'm gonna get emotional again.
It's okay.
I think he was in his last semester of teaching because he was dying of cancer. And it just opened up new perspectives of studying world religions. And what I loved about the class is how he was able to show us the similarities between the different religions throughout the world. And once we understand each other, that is one way of bringing peace and understanding. If I can just share one more thing. Several years back, we hear about the volcano erupting, which has been going on for many, many years. But several years back, there was a lava flow that was coming down the mountain, and it was heading for Pahua town. And it was ready to take out all of the community houses, the stores, the school, and everything. And there's no way to stop a lava flow. Scientists, it just has to do its own thing and go down to the ocean. And the one thing we could do was to pray and unite with each other. And so all of the church leaders got together and dedicated a weekend where all of the churches, all the different religions from the Puna area were to pray and fast with their congregations. And so each church opened up their fast on Saturday. And then there was a designated time on Sunday where we could come together and close our fast. And that night, after the fast was closed, the lava stopped. And so it's those, intercultural, whether it's like different ethnic groups, but it's also, if we look at it from different religions, finding what are our similarities. How can we be unified? Especially if we're disciples of Christ. We should be, loving disciples of Christ with everyone. And that was such a great example of how powerful it is when people come together on a common purpose. I mean, there's examples in the scriptures where people came together to pray and fast, and miracles happened. And this is a current day miracle that happened for the people who live in Puna.
Oh, that. Okay. What role does the university play in preparing students for global leadership and service?
Mm-hmm. That was David O. McKay's vision. One of the reasons, and through his dedicatory prayers, he had the vision of students coming from all over the target area, coming here to learn. I mean, we know the motto of the school, enter to learn, go forth to serve. And in his prayer, and I'm sure in his vision, he saw our wonderful students who not only prepared themselves for their professions, shared their cultural knowledge with each other, but also have prepared themselves to go back and to become leaders in their own countries. It's such an important part of why BYU exists. We're so fortunate that within a very short walking distance, we have our secular learning, we have our spiritual learning, we have the temple, we have BYU, and also cultural center, where we can really be blessed from all three of those different places of learning.
So, going back to the 70th anniversary of BYU-Hawaii and being an alumna here, Dean Housman, what are some of the key milestones in the university's history that stood out to you?
The history. Actually, I think one of the key things was when Laie was purchased back in 1850. It started there. Because, two were sent here to Hawaii. We have Elder Hammond and George Nebeker, who were sent to look for a place of gathering. They went to Kauai, they found an area, and that was one option. And then it was Elder Hammond who came here and had a significant experience. And even Elder Clough had a really special experience, both of them with Brigham Young, whether in a dream or a vision, that this is the place. So that was, to me, the start of this as being a sacred, special place. And it just kind of moved forward from there with the plantation and our missionaries who came in to help build the temple build the school, build our churches, build the community that came in from the Pacific and also local here in Hawaii. Those are all milestones. The fact that Joseph F. Smith, I love, fifth prophet of the church, who served his mission here, came as a 14-year-old in 1854, who was so sick they were afraid he was going to die and was nursed back to health by Manuhi'i, who had significant experiences here where he just loved the Hawaiian people so much. And him coming back actually for 3 missions, dedicating the temple grounds even before they had the approval of everybody. He was the prophet, he was inspired, and he, with the help of 2 others, dedicated the land, which is very significant because normally temples are built when there's a huge population of saints, but the population at the time was still fairly small. And to have a temple, the 5th one being built in the church, is just a miracle in itself. And because it became a gathering place, when David O. McKay did his world tour and went to the different Asian countries, went to the South Pacific, came to Hawaii, when he stopped here and stopped at Laie at the school, the mission school, and saw children from these different countries he had just visited all in one place. Seeing their faces and seeing the aloha that they had for each other and how much they loved and supported each other was, I think, a pivotal point, because at one point, I think maybe the church was considered a U.S. mainland. It kind of opened up the vision of this being a world church. And BYU has really been part of that story, part of that history of having students coming from, around 70 different countries to come and learn together in aloha, learn from each other, love each other, and then go back and all the things that you learn, not only for your professions and your careers, but all of those other things that go along with being with each other, taking those back home to build your families and your communities and to become leaders in your own countries is just really important.
Yeah. And we may not all be present during like the flourishing of BYU Hawaii, but we can all agree that the start of BYU Hawaii is very significant to each and every one of us, because this is where we are right now. And this is where we are getting not only our education, but our nourishment, whether it may be spiritual or secular. So I love that, Dr. Housman.
I think even the start of BYU Hawaii, was Church College.
Church College of
at
Hawaii.
the time was a miracle in itself. I mean, a very short amount of time. President, when David O. McKay came, he was an elder apostle. By the time he came prophet, he had this envision, this to be this college for the people here in the target area. So he, I think, really helped to push forward work quickly. I know our Vice President Walker has talked about that first year trying to get 154 within months of students to come, and being able to do that was, again, a miracle in itself. Starting the school without a building, and it was because of the connection that our leaders here had. They brought in military portable buildings so that the schools could start right away. So those are all, and then faculty, right? Pulling everything together in such a short amount of time was miraculous. And it just has continued to grow and grow from there.
Yeah. So, what do you think is the most significant contribution the university has made for its student and the world?
Well, I think we have to go back to the mission of BYU. Yeah, we know that it's here for those students coming from Asia and from the Pacific. But if we look at what is the real purpose, it's to help us to become disciples of Christ. So that is the mission, is to come, yes, get your training, your education. But if we're not being disciples of Christ, then we kind of have missed the whole point of why we're here. Yes, it's important to get our degrees, but even more important than that is our relationship with our Heavenly Father in Jesus Christ. And to ask yourself every single day, or ask the Lord every day, what is thy will? What is thy work? What is it that you need me to do? And if we ask those questions, he will let us know. So then the next part is following through. Once he gives us the answers, is let's do it. Let's follow those inspirations that he gives us. And to me, that's the best contribution that we can give to the world, is being disciples of Christ, letting God prevail in our lives, keeping our covenants. And as covenant people, we'll just receive so many, many blessings for our families and communities and our countries.
Yeah. And I think the university's strong ties with the church's mission, like enter to learn, go forth, serve, and, being lifelong disciples of Jesus Christ has a significant impact for each and every one of us. So, going to our next question, Dean Housman, in the next 20 years, what do you envision for BYU Hawaii?
Oh, that's a great question. I just finished reading the book that President Nelson wrote, Matter of the Heart. Talks about his life, 100 years of experience. And the things that he has pointed to is what is utmost importance is being covenant people, understanding that we are children of our Heavenly Father, sharing that knowledge with others, going forth and sharing. But one of the greatest works that we can do is the gathering of Israel. Mm-hmm. And so if we, in the next 20 years, to me, is preparing for the second coming of the Savior. And, understanding what our role is in the gathering. What is our role in service? He has talked about on both sides of the veil, right? Doing genealogy, family history, temple work, but also sharing the gospel. Mm-hmm. And preparing ourselves, our friends and loved ones and communities and countries for what's to come ahead. And so I think the best thing that we can do is just be in tune, really rely on our personal revelation. And when we do that, the Lord will direct us and let us know. I truly, truly believe that every single one of us, every single student at this university has a special work for the Lord to do. And the work that he has me to do is going to be different than the work that he has you to do, and everyone. And it's based upon our abilities and talents and the areas that we're learning. He will use us to do his work and to move it forward. And to me, I think that's my hope, is the next 20 years is that we continue to strengthen ourselves and be faithful and to do the work of the Lord that he has for us.
Thank you for that, Dean Housman. Just to wrap it up, if you could share one message with alumni and students in honor of the 70th anniversary of BYU-Hawaii, what would it be?
Oh, another great question. One message. Let me think about that for a minute. I think it's important to remember the past. Remember the sacrifice that others have made for us to be here. We benefit from the hard work and sacrifice of others to be here. And when we can appreciate the work that they've done, just realize that we also have our part that we can leave to those coming after us. So just continue to be the wonderful students that you are. I have to admit, I tell everyone I come across whenever I'm out, I say, we have the best students in the entire world that go to BYU-Hawaii. And I fully, truly believe that because I feel like you're here for a special purpose, not only to get your degrees, but to be that light, right? We know the scripture, arise and shine thy light for the nations, right? As an ensign for the nation. And that's an important role that I think each and every one of us needs to play.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for bringing such a sweet, beautiful spirit to our podcast session today, and thank you for your wonderful experience that you share with us. Thank you for spending time with us today, Dean Housman. We truly appreciate your service and legacy here at BYU Hawaii.
Yeah, thank you for sharing wonderful takeaways. And we learned that it's all about the legacy that we want to give out to the world and the legacies that the other people in the past have given to us that we should all remember. And thank you as well, our listeners, for tuning in with us. Don't forget to follow us on our socials at Alaka'i News on Instagram and Alaka'i on Facebook and YouTube.
And make sure to tune into this week's episode and next week's on Buzzsprout, YouTube, and Spotify. These are your hosts, Valerie,
Michael,
and Pim.
See you next week, guys.
Mahalo.
Aloha.
Mahalo.